Weatherline 259 WKRN.
Senator Edward Kennedy, a life of political accomplishment overshadowed by personal scandal. Accusations of womanizing virtually silenced him during the Clarence Thomas hearing. And even colleagues took potshots.
We do not need characterizations like shame in this chamber from the senator from Massachusetts.
Today, finally, a painful admission.
I say I recognize my own shortcomings, the faults in the conduct of my private life.
Tonight is Ted Kennedy fighting for his political life.
This is ABC News Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Chris Wallace.
It should have been an occasion of pride. Ted Kennedy speaking at a ceremony at a school named for his brother. But as so often in the past, Kennedy's private problems spilled over into his public life. With continuing outrage over his Easter weekend in Palm Beach, with the Thomas hearings raising new doubts about his political effectiveness, with polls showing support even in Massachusetts eroding, Kennedy felt he had to speak out. I recognize my own shortcomings, he said, and I am the one who must confront them. Given all of his problems, that admission may seem surprisingly modest. But for any politician, let alone a Kennedy, it was a tough moment. It was clearly part of a political strategy to try to salvage his credibility. And, if meant seriously, it was also an important personal pledge. Nightline's Jeff Greenfield, who once worked for Robert Kennedy, reports on a public and private drama that never seems to end.
He is the youngest male of his generation in this picture from 31 Novembers ago, a portrait of America's new first family. 2 years later, he is part of this triumvirate of youth, wealth, power, glamour. One brother is president, another attorney general. At age 30, he has just been elected United States Senator. Over the next 6 years, he will bury first one brother, then another. And in 1968, at age 36, he will find himself a presumptive future president of the United States. That was a very long time ago. And today, nearing his 60th birthday, Edward Kennedy came to a school named for one of his brothers and spoke words that must have come very hard.
I recognize my own shortcomings, the faults in the conduct of my private life. I realize that I alone am responsible for them.
They were a relative handful of words, part of an otherwise unremarkable recitation of the liberal agenda. But two factors made this speech extraordinary. First, Kennedy's office actively sought the widest possible press coverage for the speech. Second, Kennedy was publicly acknowledging that his personal, private behavior had now in fact become an unavoidable public issue. For Kennedy, it all began to change, of course, at Chappaquiddick in July of 1969. The death of Mary Jo Kopechne in a car driven by Kennedy, combined with his widely disbelieved explanations, has tainted his reputation for more than 2 decades. It is always on the edge of our view of the man.
There is no proof that Anita Hill has perjured herself.
Just last week, as the Senate debated Judge Thomas's Supreme Court nomination, Kennedy's friend Orrin Hatch made this comment, which he later withdrew.
Fact of the matter is, anybody who believes that, I know a bridge up in Massachusetts that I'll be happy to sell to them with the help of Senator Kennedy.
But Chappaquiddick does not stand alone. In 1980, Kennedy's reputation as an effective advocate was damaged by a run for the presidency in which he sometimes appeared clumsy, even inarticulate.
Why do you want to be president? Well,
Only after he had lost did he redeem himself with a moving convention speech.
For all those whose cares have been our concern, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.
His off-the-job life, divorce, stories of excessive drinking and womanizing, raised the specter of hypocrisy.
He has epitomized the framing of the dialogue in a good versus bad moral framework. Someone who does that and who has a semi-public life that strikes many people as immoral comes to represent I think, and he has come to represent a kind of rank hypocrisy.
For his supporters, all this was overshadowed by his relentless battles for liberal causes, his unbending opposition to the Reagan-Bush philosophy.
He was prepared to make a fight when a lot of other people were not. He was in there. He is the single biggest reason we've got a civil rights bill coming, because he didn't give up.
But last spring, the stories of an alleged rape committed by his nephew at the Kennedy Beach compound changed the equation. Kennedy has been charged with no wrongdoing, but his presence in so gamey a story seemed to represent a kind of breaking point.
There was a change in the way people evaluated him. People started saying and writing judgments about Senator Kennedy that they hadn't done before, and that, frankly, I thought were out of all perspective.
His once impregnable Massachusetts base weakened. One poll last August showed 62% of the voters there wanted a new senator. But this fall's Clarence Thomas sexual harassment controversy made things worse. Over and over again, television showed an obviously uncomfortable, mostly silent Kennedy unable to lead the charge. Novelist James Carroll, a self-described lifelong Kennedy Democrat.
Senator Kennedy sitting at Biden's side in those hearings was the most powerful nonverbal symbol of the turning point that we're at on the subject of the injustice of sexism in this country.
For supporter Ann Lewis, none of this changes her view of Ted Kennedy as a progressive hero.
At the end, you make one bottom line decision. Is my life or my children's lives, is society's life better because this person holds office, because this person will make decisions?
Others see his problem as permanent.
I think that the Thomas hearings illustrated on national television what a lot of political observers have come to realize in the past decade, perhaps, that Ted Kennedy has a real problem serving as a public moral voice. Because this is his role. If he cannot do this, then what can he do?
In today's speech, Kennedy tried to answer that question. He will, he said, stand and fight.
Above all, whether the odds are in my favor or against me, I will continue to stand up in good times and in seasons of adversity for the people who sent me to the Senate in the first place nearly 30 years ago.
Ted Kennedy will not face those people for another 3 years, and polls are fleeting things. He may well be able to keep his Senate seat for as long as he wants. But Kennedy long ago abandoned any dreams of the White House. Now he wants to be a leading voice for political righteousness. His speech today suggests that he and his advisors know that this position, too, is in danger. I'm Jeff Greenfield for Nightline.
When we come back, we'll be joined by the author of a biography on the Kennedy family, by a Boston newspaper columnist and longtime friend of the Kennedys who's been critical of the way the senator has handled his personal problems, and by a conservative activist whose lobbying group produced television commercials attacking Kennedy on the eve of the Thomas hearings.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Jeep Eagle.
Jeep Cherokee Sport is the perfect vehicle for traveling America's most famous roads, like Wall Street, Pacific Coast Highway, Park Avenue, and, of course, Sunset Boulevard.
Now drive for the gold and save an additional $1,000 on new Jeep Cherokees.
I'm alive, Jeff Hashimoto.
I'm alive, Rhonda Williamson.
I'm alive, Sonia Schofield.
I'm alive, Howard Weber.
Want to get more out of life?
I'm alive, Jessica Weber.
Get airbags. See your Allstate agent for a list of cars with airbags.
We're alive.
You know, I'd forgotten how much fun it can be to just let loose with the kids. When I think back, some of my best memories are of things my parents planned with my sisters and me. Dad, Big Bird is so big. I really get a kick out of my kids.
There's nowhere else they can see their best friends on stage. And there's nothing like Sesame Street Live.
Good seats remain for all shows now through Sunday at Municipal Auditorium.
Goodbye, Tide with Bleach. Here's Ultra.
I've tried everything, but this gets the odor out of my laundry.
Instead of a cup, one little scoop.
I can't believe the scoop is so small. You see these socks? They could walk out the door by themselves. And the odor? Oof.
Take dirt and odor gone down to the fiber. Gets only this white with this other detergent, but with Ultra Tide with bleach, it's whiter without chlorine bleach.
So white? Not a trace of that smell. I don't need liquid bleach anymore.
Today's Tide with bleach is Ultra.
I'm David Brinkley. On our This Week program Sunday, can you believe this? A peace conference including the Israelis and the Palestinians? We'll have questions for representatives of both sides.
Joining us now from our Boston bureau is Doris Kearns Goodwin, author of the biography, The Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys. From our Boston affiliate, WCVB, Mike Barnacle, a columnist for the Boston Globe. And from our Colorado Springs affiliate, KRDO, Brent Bozell, executive director of the Conservative Victory Committee. Mr. Barnacle, as I mentioned, today's speech by Kennedy was in some sense both a personal and a political statement. And to the degree possible, I want to try to deal with those two aspects of it separately. First of all, politically, did Kennedy help himself today?
I don't know that he helped himself, Chris. I think what he did, I think it was a pretty sad day all around. I mean, he came into a room at Harvard in a school named for his brother with a speech written by someone else. Supposedly it was hyped to be some sort of personal confession or a confession or an epiphany. And he talked about his own personal shortcomings as if he were talking about not having brushed after every meal and having not cleaned up his room every night. But personally, I found it to be a sad, sad spectacle. I mean, here's a guy, a terrific guy who's fought for all sorts of great issues, standing up there seemingly weighted with his own personal history and the history of politics in the last 30 years and everyone's expectations. And he hasn't matched up to people's expectations.
Ms. Goodwin, do you agree was today just a total disappointment and totally ineffective?
Well, you know, it certainly compared to the revelatory age we live in, where everybody, it's a celebrity, says, I was a teenage werewolf, I was an incest victim. In that sense, when he simply talked in general terms about faults and shortcomings, it might not seem like he confessed very much. But I think something very important happened today. For this man of his generation, this Irish man of his generation, this Kennedy, who never admits faults, to say that he has faults and shortcomings seems to me it's an attempt to turn things around. He saw that downward slide, and I think he's saying, I understand that I've got to take control of myself again. So I think we can see it as the beginning of a process where maybe things are going to get better for him. I see it differently than Mike did.
Mr. Bozell, let me ask you about that. I know that nothing that Ted Kennedy was going to say was going to persuade you, but as a political professional on the other extreme of the spectrum, wasn't today at least a first step towards Kennedy's political rehabilitation?
Well, I think Senator Kennedy is recognizing the obvious, which is that politically he's in critical condition. And what he did was to start his 1994 campaign today, 3 years ahead of time. I would say about any other politician with the numbers that Ted Kennedy has, that the man would be finished. But one has to remember that Ted Kennedy also heads up quite possibly the most powerful political machine in this country from a one-man standpoint. So I don't think he's finished, but I do think that he's one step away from being in mortal danger.
Well, let's talk about this critical condition. Some people say he's terminal politically. You know, before he made his speech at Harvard today, Kennedy was down in Washington holding a news conference celebrating his role in this compromise on the Civil Rights Bill. I mean, at least behind the scenes, isn't he still a very effective senator?
Oh, I think there's no... Go ahead.
Mr. Bozell, you first.
Ted Kennedy to liberalism is like Fidel Castro to communism. These are dead ideologies. He's not going to be able to push his big spending programs anymore because, among other reasons, the government doesn't have any more money. So he's losing that clout.
You know, let's get rid of the gibberish here, the Conservative Victory Committee or whatever it is. That's not his problem. His problem, as he articulated it, his political problem. He said 3 of his issues are coming to the core now: jobs, schools, and health care. Ted Kennedy is caught up in a climate of anger and fear that stalks the land today, fed by these nuts on both sides, conservative and liberal. When you look around Massachusetts, the jobs are disappearing, the schools are in chaos, and health care is increasingly expensive. And more people are looking at Ted Kennedy and saying, what have you done for me? What have you done for me lately? Now, you can't beat somebody with nobody. So no one's saying that Ted Kennedy is going to be finished next week or next year. But his issues and his persona in the Senate, it just isn't enough to come back to this state or any state and say, I fought for you in that committee. And boy, when we marked up that bill inside the Beltway, I was there for you. Now, unfortunately, it didn't pass, but I'm with you all the way.
Ms. Goodwin, you seem to be the one person here who thinks that Kennedy may have at least begun today to turn it around. But let me ask you about that, because a lot of people think that the toughest patch for Kennedy is still ahead, and that is the Willie Smith rape trial months ahead, and where he apparently is going to be a witness.
Oh, there's no question about that, and I'm sure there was some thinking on his side that might have said maybe he should wait for a speech that he gave today until that trial were over so he could start this whole process and not know this terrible thing was in front of him. But I think he had to start. I think it had reached a point where he had to take a hold of the process. When politicians begin to lose control and people are saying things about him that he had no control over, he had to somehow say, look, I'm here and I'm going to fight. People were even suggesting he might resign, that he might be today giving all sorts of reasons why he wasn't going to run again. He had to say, I'm in there fighting, just so his supporters, I think the biggest group he had to talk to today, not the right wing who are going to hate him forever, not even the people who have just recently gone off the bandwagon. It's those people who've supported him forever. He had to touch them today.
All right, we have to break in. As we said, there were several aspects to Kennedy's speech today, and when we return, I want to ask you all about the personal significance, and we'll continue our discussion in a moment.
The energy to go further. We share that energy at Texaco, leading the way in exploration, conservation, alternate energy. The energy to go as far as we can and then go even further.
3 years ago, we set out to create a sports sedan. But first and foremost, we set out to create a Lexus. Introducing the new Lexus ES 300 Sports Sedan.
There's one battery that backs you with free jumpstart service anywhere, for any reason. Die Hard.
Can't believe I left my lights on.
Sears Die Hard. More power when you need it most.
Who's gonna back you better than Sears?
Goodbye, Tide with Bleach. Here's Ultra.
When I had the kids, I thought I'd bought my last white towel.
Instead of a cup, one little scoop.
I thought that little scoop was just too small. This washcloth is caked with mud, ground into the terry cloth.
Take dirt gone down to the fiber. Gets only this white with this other detergent, but with Ultra Tide with Bleach, it's whiter without chlorine bleach.
I don't need liquid bleach anymore. This is my kind of white.
Today's Tide with Bleach is Ultra.
Are you tired of working for someone else? Do you want to earn more money? Do you want the freedom and independence of owning your own business? Where can you investigate a multitude of businesses all under one roof? This weekend, the 1991 Franchise and Business Opportunity Show is bringing these opportunities to you. We've brought together franchise and business experts from many industries to talk to you about your future. This Saturday and Sunday only, 11 to 5:30 at the Maxwell House Hotel at Metro Center.
It's the grand opening of Furniture Factory Outlet, Nashville's newest, most exciting furniture showroom. 50,000 square feet of name brand furniture at lowest guaranteed prices every day. Nothing matches the comfort of quality Sealy bedding, and nothing matches Furniture Factory Outlet's lowest guaranteed prices on the largest selection of Sealy bedding in Nashville. Do yourself a favor and get the lowest guaranteed prices on Sealy bedding at Furniture Factory Outlet. We save you money.
When news matters, it matters where you get your news. For the first time in years, Arabs and Israelis will meet to talk peace. It starts Tuesday with a Bush-Gorbachev joint press conference. Peter Jennings will be there in Madrid, reporting what happens at the Middle East Peace Conference on ABC's World News Tonight next week.
Continuing our discussion now on Ted Kennedy, Ms. Goodwin, for all the politics today, as we mentioned, there is also the personal side of a man who's led a troubled life. When Ted Kennedy said today that he knows that he must confront his problem, do you think he meant it?
I think it has to be that he meant it. I mean, it seems to me that he's lived a life until this point where he wanted to live, work, and play as hard as he could, almost as if he were going to die tomorrow. That's the legacy of the Kennedys. What he finally said today is, I know that my private life has gotten in the way of my public life. It's the first time he's admitted that. And if he's willing to confront that, this is only a first step. There's a lot more to go, but I think it's a big thing, and I don't think he would have said it if he didn't mean it. That word did not come easily for him. No Kennedy has an easy time admitting anything private.
You say he needs to go further, such as? What does he need to do?
Well, I think he needs to decide for himself what those faults and shortcomings are. I mean, to say you have faults and shortcomings, we all have faults and shortcomings. What does he mean? To what extent has it impaired his effectiveness? Does it mean he has a drinking problem? Does it mean that he should settle down and find a wife and have some kids and be more relaxed and not be running around at night? He has to decide all of that for himself.
Mr. Barnacle, from your long-time experience with the Kennedys, do you think it was just a speech, or do you think he now really understands and believes that he has a problem?
I don't know. You know, I'm in the observation business. I'm not in the judgment business. I assume that he had to have meant something by it just by saying it. But I would say that, you know, I think he's been terribly ill-served by a lot of the people who have been around him for years and years, who tell him nothing but good news and tell him things that, you know, well, voters don't really believe that stuff that they read in the papers and in People magazine. But they do, and it's got to have been terribly difficult for him as a human being to stand up there in front of TV cameras that feed him into millions of homes and admit that he had shortcomings. As shortcoming as that word might be, it had to be tough for him to do it.
Ms. Goodwin, you wrote a book, of course, a well-known book about the Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys. What do you make of the argument that there's a pattern of behavior here that's been passed down from Joe Kennedy to his sons, that they're somehow above the rules, and that's what we're seeing here with Teddy? That's what we've seen through his whole life.
Well, I think there's no question that if you look at it over the years, the Kennedy family has to some extent thought of itself as an island unto itself, with all the strengths and weaknesses that that's brought us. The funny thing I remember is Lyndon Johnson predicting that one day all this Kennedy womanizing would come to roost and that would destroy the family. He wanted to believe that would be true, and sometimes I fear that it has certainly had an impact.
But let's now put it in that perspective. You've got a family behavior that stretches back generations. You have a man who is 59 years of age. Do you really now suddenly see him changing his behavior?
Oh, we've got to believe people can change. In fact, I think when he was saying, I'm nearly 60 years old, but yet I've had a lot of years to live, more than my brothers, it was almost saying, I've got more years to go. I might live till my mother. My mother, after all, was 102. If you think of another 42 years, he better change.
Do you think the calendar will slow him down, Doris?
Maybe that's what normally happens to people.
Mr. Bozell, is it a good thing, and do you believe now that voters finally are deciding that they are not going to separate public and private behavior?
They're not going to separate it, and that's a problem for Mr. Kennedy. I think the voters are going to look at Congress in the next 2 or 3 elections with a lot more scrutiny than they ever have before, because they see the institution as a whole as being corrupt. Where personal corruption is concerned, whether the left cares to admit it or not, Senator Kennedy personifies that to a lot of people. So he's going to be under the microscope in the next 2 to 4 years. So he's got to change his act.
But Ms. Goodwin, you know as an historian that better than most that there have been plenty of great leaders who were miserable people. Where do you draw the balance here?
I think where you draw the balance is where that private life affects their public behavior. And I think what he was saying today was that there's a sense in which he's begun to realize that the private life has threatened his effectiveness, and to that extent he's willing to change it. In general, I think we're going incredibly overboard in looking at microscopic behavior on these people's private lives. Nobody could stand the muster in the past that we're putting on our present people.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Barnacle, and has Ted Kennedy clearly stepped over that boundary?
I think clearly Ted Kennedy is a guy with, you know, flaws and frailties, as we all have. But I think what Doris said is absolutely right. I think there's a level of pettiness and viciousness in the media today that doesn't go after these people in order to point out these flaws, but goes after people to destroy them. It's not enough to you know, make people, influence people one way or another. Now we want to destroy some of these people, and I think Kennedy is one of the people that some people want to destroy.
Mr. Barnacle, let me break in again, and when we return, I want to ask all of you for some predictions on what's ahead for Ted Kennedy, and we'll continue our discussion in a moment.
How'd you get those flowers in there? Behr's new longer-lasting Glade Carpet Potpourri. So now the freshness lasts even longer. Spray it, shake it, or pump it.
No potpourris like Glade.
Hi, I'm Jerry Sutton, pastor of Two Rivers Baptist Church, and I want to give you a special invitation to join us at 9:30 on Channel 2. We live in a world where families seem to be torn apart on every hand. The moral fiber of our country seems to be disintegrating before us. And when we meet here on Sunday mornings, we talk about solutions and not just the problems. If you can't join us here in person, let me encourage you to join us on Channel 2 at 9:30 on Sunday mornings. We'd love to have you with us.
But if you do have AT&T, you're automatically protected by the 800 Assurance Policy. Not only that, since AT&T connects calls faster and has the fewest blocked calls, more 800 calls get through. So you can make more sales. Better service, better results. Another AT&T advantage. Call about our 800 offer.
We made it! Hey, I couldn't have gotten through physics without you.
Yeah, well, you're on your own at college.
It's not fair.
It's all right. I'm gonna get a job, I'm gonna start working, I'm gonna save. And I'll be in college in another year or two.
So, what do you have planned, Mike?
I think I'm gonna go home and make a sandwich. Okay.
Support the United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Continuing our discussion now on Ted Kennedy, Mr. Bazell, for all of his current problems, 3 years is an eternity in politics. Do you see Ted Kennedy running for re-election in '94?
I don't think he's made up his mind yet. I think that if things continue as they are, I think he'll probably run. But I think the polls are showing that the people of Massachusetts are fed up, they're embarrassed, and they're humiliated, and they want to change.
And do you really think that with Kennedy putting on a full-court press for 3 years, he will be unable to turn that around?
Oh, I don't say that for a second. I think he could pull it off, especially when you look at what the Republican Party has done in Massachusetts. It's been in disarray for about 10 years.
Mike Barnicle, what do you see?
Well, I'm not too good at looking into the future. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow night between the Twins and the Braves, but I would tell you personally that as far as Ted Kennedy is concerned, I would like to see him achieve some level of peace and happiness, and that doesn't necessarily mean winning an election.
But do you really believe that the voters of Massachusetts would turn out a Kennedy?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that the dissatisfaction has...
The level of anger, the dissatisfaction, the unease, the fear about the economy, the wondering, again, reflecting back on, what does this guy do for a living? What do any of them do for a living? He's one of them. He's been there 30 years. I can see a lot of people pulling the plug for someone running against him, especially younger people who have no idea. I mean, to them, the Kennedy family is a made-for-TV movie.
Ms. Goodwin, we only have about 30 seconds. What do you see for Ted Kennedy, both personally and politically?
Well, I think things are going to get worse before they get better. But I do think he's got a lot of strengths inside, and he's pulled them out before, and he somehow has managed for 30 years to keep coming back and fighting. He's like an old boxer in a certain sense. And I think if he pulls it all out and he keeps running for the next 3 years, they won't come to him just because he's a Kennedy. I think that's over in a certain sense. They'll come because he's done a lot for them, and he's going to prove to them that he can do more. He's got to win it on his own this time.
Very briefly, can you imagine Ted Kennedy living without politics?
No, absolutely not. It's part of his life. It's been his whole life ever since he was 2 years old. I can't.
Ms. Goodwin, gentlemen, thank you all very much. It'll give us something to chew on for the next 3 years, and thank you all for joining us tonight. Sunday on This Week with David Brinkley, a preview of the upcoming Middle East Peace Conference with Secretary of State James Baker. And that's our report for tonight. I'm Chris Wallace in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
For a videocassette version of Nightline, the cost is $14.98 plus $3.95 shipping and handling.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
America's watching ABC.
Nashville Ballet. Experience.
It's trick-or-treat time, and this time Opryland is going to treat your little goblins to Halloween at Opryland. 2 weekends, October